presentation, Brian and myself will present and answer those questions. We'll turn on our cameras at that point, and you'll be able to see who's speaking. And we'll try and address all the questions that we received tonight. So we're at 30 attendees. I think we're going to start the presentation now. And if you get locked out, just please log out, log back straight back in, and you should be back where we was.
Hello, and thank you for your interest in the 15th Avenue Northeast paving project. During this online presentation, we will provide you with information about the upcoming construction scheduled to take place in August on 15th Avenue Northeast between Northeast 55th Street and Lake City Way Northeast. At this time, design is complete. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the entire project, to explain what has changed during design, and to provide details about the construction process. Team members who are here presenting from the Seattle Department of Transportation are Brian Glass, the project manager, myself, Darryl Bormer, the communications and outreach lead, and Kayla Ravancho, a member of the outreach team. You will be able to submit questions throughout this presentation using the Q&A function. Questions will be moderated and our presenters will respond to as many as possible at the end. If we do not have enough time to address all the points raised, we will note these and add them to a document that compiles all the questions and answers. This document will be added to the project webpage in the coming days. We are recording this presentation so that it can be housed online for those who could not attend. This will be posted to the project webpage tomorrow. To make this presentation the best possible experience for all, please mute your microphone and turn off your video camera. As a reminder, we will take your questions through the Q&A function and address them after the presentation. To kick things off, let's start with some brief project background information. In 2015, voters approved the Levy to move Seattle. As part of the Levy, communities and stakeholders throughout Seattle were engaged to determine transportation needs. This project stemmed from that discussion and is one of many projects designed to cost-effectively update designs to improve safety for all travelers, maintain streets, and build features that support a growing city. This project is also a designated Vision Zero project, which means it is part of Seattle's plan to end traffic deaths and serious injuries by 2030. As you learn more about our planned improvements, you'll notice various safety measures incorporated for people walking, riding bikes, driving cars, or accessing and using public transportation. Our goal is to decrease the annual statistics you see on this slide. In our project area, there's been 1 fatality and 48 injuries in the last 5 years. After this project is completed, we believe it can help prevent collisions through various means, including better street designs like left turn lane pockets and signals, flashing beacon crossings, protected bike lanes, and ADA curb ramps. On the right of this slide and on the project webpage is a map showing the extent of our work area and the various features included in the project. The project begins at Northeast 55th Street and continues north along 15th Avenue Northeast to Lake City Way North. Features within the project include sidewalk and curb ramp upgrades to meet ADA standards, new protected bike lanes, removal of peak hour parking to make parking available 24/7 on one side of the street, new turn pockets and signals, and stormwater drainage improvements. As we worked towards final design, we reached out to community members, business owners, schools, and developers to gather feedback. We heard many recurring themes at open houses, drop-in events, or through one-on-one meetings. We examined those themes and were able to incorporate many community-driven ideas into the final design. Overall safety improvements were the #1 priority. To prevent collisions, people asked for left turn pockets and designated signals at intersections. We were able to provide these at Northeast 65th Street, Northeast 75th Street, and at Northeast 80th Street. Concerns for crossing at Northeast 62nd Street came up a lot from people walking to and from Cohen Park. We were able to incorporate a crosswalk at this location to improve safety. Feedback about safety around Roosevelt High School was frequently mentioned. As part of our Safe Routes to School program, we are installing 3 rapid flashing beacon crosswalks in this area. We are also moving the bus load zones from 15th Avenue Northeast to Northeast 68th Street. People asked for pedestrian improvements, and we are upgrading curb ramps and improving sidewalks. Safe crossings for bikes are being added at Northeast Ravenna Boulevard, and load zones are being incorporated for business needs. Parking is being maintained on one side of the street, and time-limited restrictions are being removed. Other feedback has been collected and will be considered for future improvements. As mentioned in the previous slide, we are making changes around the high school to improve accessibility and safety for those traveling to and from the school, and for those using the new bike lanes heading south. During initial outreach, many asked if we could relocate the bus loading zones to improve the experience for students with accessibility needs, and to reduce the concern with buses mixing with traffic on 15th Avenue Northeast. After close collaboration and partnering with Roosevelt High School, we were able to add these improvements to our design. It's important to note that the direction of traffic on Northeast 68th Street and Northeast 66th Street will be reversed. To avoid backups from 65th, left turns onto 66th will no longer be allowed. The bus load zone moving from 15th Avenue Northeast onto Northeast 68th Street requires the removal of some parking. To mitigate this impact, we added parking opposite of the school on 15th Avenue Northeast and included loading zones for businesses. This slide is a reminder of how the new street layout will work in 2 sections. At the top, you can see how it will look between Northeast 62nd and Lake City Way. Here, the bike lanes are against the curb and protected to improve safety. Parking is on the east side to avoid conflicts with bikes traveling quickly downhill on the west side. The lower portion shows the work between Northeast 55th and Cohen Place Northeast. Here the bike lanes do not have a protection due to the road not being wide enough to accommodate them. This slide features some of the elements of the project that you can expect to see during construction. Most obvious is a new road surface done through the method of mill and overlay. This means we grind off the top 2 or 3 inches and then replace it with fresh asphalt. We will paint the lines after the asphalt is dry enough for the paint to adhere to the surface, which is about 3 weeks after the overlay. Protected bike lanes provide a safe space for cyclists of all abilities. As the population rate of Seattle increases, we continue to look for ways to ease congestion and to provide transportation options for all modes. In addition to protected bike lanes, we added a painted crossing for those riding bikes at Ravenna Boulevard. Pedestrian improvements include new crosswalks near Roosevelt High School and at Northeast 62nd Street, as well as curb ramp upgrades to meet ADA standards. A part of this project involves making stormwater drainage improvements at select locations. We will be making the sidewalks more accessible along the project corridor with ramps that meet ADA standards. There will be impacts to parking along the corridor. We will remove parking on one side of the street and remove restrictions for parking on the side that remains. The water main replacement work will require an estimated 4 water shutoffs. Seattle Public Utilities staff will coordinate with homeowners at least 2 days in advance, and we will incorporate their messaging into our outreach wherever possible. You will find contact details for SPU on our project website. As we mentioned earlier, we will be making upgrades to stormwater drainage at various points within the work zone. We will also make some changes to side sewers for 3 homes. We will coordinate with all homeowners affected by our work well in advance.
During construction, we expect regular hours to be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. with some setup and takedown either side of that. If we must work outside of these hours, we will let you know through our email updates. If you have not done so, please sign up for the project email list on our webpage. Details of that page will be shared at the end of this presentation. Other impacts of our work may include noise, vibration, dust, debris, staging near work areas, street and or lane closures, and detours for pedestrians.
During construction, we expect regular hours to be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. with some setup and takedown either side of that. If we must work outside of these hours, we will let you know through our email updates. If you have not yet done so, please sign up for the project email list on our webpage. Details of that page will be shared at the end of this presentation. Other impacts of our work may include noise, vibration, dust, debris, staging near work areas, street and or lane closures, and detours for pedestrians. Our outreach team will be available throughout construction to answer questions. We will provide advance notice of work through our project emails. So again, we encourage you to please sign up. We will work with community members to share information with those living in or traveling through the work zones.
At this time, we anticipate that construction will begin in September of 2020. We expect work to be completed in early 2022. We are currently working with our construction team to determine what part of the construction zone will be our starting point. We will let you know once we have that information. We will provide this information via weekly updates through our project emails. So please subscribe to those on our webpage. We will also add updated information to our webpage on a weekly basis.
There are many ways to contact the outreach team during construction. You can email us at 15th Northeast Paving at seattle.gov or call our construction hotline at 206-775-8718. That's 206-775-8718. Contact information can also be found on our project webpage, which is seattle.gov/transportation/15th Avenue Northeast Paving. We are going to turn our screens on and respond to the questions that you have been submitting through the Q&A function. You can continue to submit questions and we will do our best to get to all of them. We will collect all the questions and post them with our answers to the website.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening through that presentation. I hope it answered some of your questions. We have been collecting a great deal more questions as we've been going through using the question and answer function, which should be top right-hand side of your screen. So what we're going to do now is Brian and I are going to try and answer as many questions as we can and provide as many details as we can. But you can continue to ask questions via that function top right of your screen. So if you look, you should see two little chat bubbles with a question mark in it. If you click on that, it should open up a little portal where you can type in a question and hit send. And that arrives on our end, and Kayla Ravancho is moderating those questions, and she will present them to the correct person who can answer it, either Brian or myself. And I will direct the question so that the correct person answering will appear on your screen shortly. And yeah, so continue to ask those questions. We'll get to as many as we can. And if we do not answer all, add them to our website tomorrow. So that will be live tomorrow, along with a recording of this event. So should be about lunchtime, we'll have this. So tonight's attendance should be available. A full transcript should be available online right now, so you can download that if you missed some of this presentation. So I'm going to hand it over to Kayla's voice, and she will direct questions to each of us, and we'll do our best to answer the questions you've been submitting.
Thanks, Daryl. The first question is for you, Daryl, and the question is, who is funding the project?
Okay, great. So this is part of SDOT's arterial, asphalt, and concrete paving program. We call it AAC, acronyms all around. Design and construction of our paving projects, as well as the safety and mobility improvements shown, are funded by the Levy to Move Seattle, which was approved by Seattle voters in November of 2015.
Thank you, Daryl. This next question is for Brian. And the question is, will you be zoning any areas to help with residential parking? With the Roosevelt light rail coming, we're concerned about being able to park in the neighborhood.
Yeah, so good question. Yeah, due to the COVID-19 situation currently going on, there's kind of a lot of uncertainty with parking right now in our planning study. That said, there's a possibility that we'll conduct a parking study in the fall, depending on when Roosevelt School restarts and when we see a more normal parking demand. We may consider putting restricted parking zones on 69th and or 68th. However, there are some other options on the table too. In addition to local residents' needs, it is also important to consider the needs of the whole neighborhood, like schools and the businesses. Some of the things we're considering is time and limited parking in the area, like either a 2-hour or 4-hour time limits for people that don't have a RPZ exemption, residential parking zone tags, or leaving it unrestricted. Another option we're looking at is letting the teachers at Roosevelt High School apply for RPZ permits. And also we're looking at making it potentially some of the streets around the school a hybrid, like RPZ parking zone for one part of the block and time limits for the other part.
Thank you, Brian. This next question is for Daryl. And the question is, why are you removing parking on one side of the street? And what are you doing to mitigate this loss?
Okay, so you'll have to forgive me. I've made notes because I thought we might get this question. So I might be reading from my notes down here because I definitely have notes about this and it's long-winded. Parking is being removed on one side to facilitate the inclusion of protected bike lanes. We're only removing parking on one side of the street to mitigate this loss. We are removing peak hour parking restrictions on the other side where the parking will remain. And this parking will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in addition to this, and because of an email we received from the community, before construction begins, we'll have a contractor go out there and remove some of the peak restriction parking signs on both west and east side of 15th between 55th Street and Lake City Way prior to construction. So we understand what we heard is people are working from home. They're finding it hard to find places to park or having to get out there and move their car a lot. So in order to help the community, we're going to remove some of those restrictions. But there are some exceptions as always, and these are because of safety reasons and because we haven't set up the channelization yet to be as we wanted it. So those exceptions, I will try and be brief, but I'll try and be concise too. East side of 15th Avenue between 63rd Street and 65th will retain those restrictions. The west side between 65th and 66th also. And then the east side of 15th between 73rd and 75th. And the west side between 75th and 76th. And then finally, the east side of 15th between 77th and 80th. And then the west side between Lake City Way and Northeast 80th. Please note that this is important, that this parking, although we're kind of adding some additional parking back in the coming weeks and so, it's only going to be available when the contractor is not actively working in your project in your local area. So if we are working in 1 or 2 blocks, 2 or 3 blocks, then the parking will be taken away as we channel. We're going to try and keep 1 lane or 2 lanes open. So we will not have parking in that area. So these restrictions will change, and you'll see some no parks going up prior to construction. That'll be a clue that we're coming, as well as other notices that we're hoping to give to you and updates through our project's emails that we hope you do subscribe to. So thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. This next question is for Brian. And the question asks, what does the work being done by Seattle Public Utilities involve? Will there be impacts to my home during this work?
Yes, the major work that we are doing for Seattle Public Utilities is we're upgrading a water main that runs along 15th. Throughout most of the corridor, the water line is a standard 8-inch diameter that services all the homes and the fire hydrants. But between 70th and 75th, the water main is only 3 inches in diameter. And so as part of this project, we'll be upgrading that to an 8-inch standard diameter water main. This will help provide sufficient fire flow and flow to all the residents along the corridor. In this section between 70th and 75th, we'll be upgrading also when we do that the water service pipes between the new water main and the residents' water meters that are typically right around the sidewalk. And this will help kind of improve the resiliency of the drinking water system and increase fire flow, as I said. Yeah, there will be some impacts to the homes. To safely complete this work, there'll be approximately 4 scheduled temporarily water outages required, and those are needed. So when we put the new water main in first and test it and make sure it's ready to go, but we'll need like a water shutoff in order to connect the new pipe into the existing pipe. And so Seattle Public Utilities crews will be working with our contractors to do that work. And typically those shutoffs will occur during the nighttime hours. And you know, we don't know the exact duration of how many hours it'll take, but some of that work does take several hours worth of work. So we try to do it at night to reduce impacts to the residents. Let's see, when we do the water shutoffs, you'll be notified by Seattle Public Utilities at least 2 days in advance of the water shutoffs. We'll try to give some more general guidance when we get closer to like when those will actually be but it'll be at least 2 days in advance of doing the work.
Thanks, Brian. A follow-up question to that is, who is funding the water main work? Is that SPU or SDOT?
SPU is funding the water main work and the new water service connections to the houses out of water ratepayer funds, not SDOT.
Great, thank you. This question is for either Brian or Daryl, but Brian, since you're on, you can start. The question asks, what changes in design were made in response to 2019 community concerns and feedback about increased traffic congestion?
I think the one we made is we heard a lot of concerns, about protected bike lanes and wanting to maintain those through the intersections, but we also heard, a number of comments too about wanting to maintain traffic flow, especially at some of the major intersections like 65th, 75th, and 80th. And so working with our consultant, we did some traffic modeling analysis at the intersections and trying to come up with a balanced solution that worked for both the bicyclists and the people traveling in cars along the corridor. And so we came up with a channelization plan that add some left turn pockets at some of those major intersections. And when the green, we'll get a green arrow. Currently at 75th and 80th, it's just a green ball and you have to yield to the oncoming traffic. So at 75th and 80th, we added a green arrow that allows you to turn left in advance of before the cars coming at you have a chance to come through. It's called a protected phase. And so that'll come up with a few seconds to allow some cars to get through before the through cars coming the other direction come at you. Then also after that phase comes up, then it'll be a flashing yellow arrow, and that's called permissive phase. And so you can still turn left during that phase, but you just have to yield to oncoming traffic. So that was one option we changed. We also got some comments about trying to maintain some of the parking for some of the businesses that are around on 15th, around 80th. And so we did modify some of the channelization and striping to try and maintain some more loading zones and parking for some of the business customers. So we made some changes around 80th too as well. See some other changes we made. We heard some concerns about trying to maintain some loading zones for some businesses that are between and the new apartments going in between 65th and 68th. And we also heard concerns from the school about the school bus loading zone on 15th, not really in an ideal location. And so we worked with the school and came up with a new location for the school bus loading zone where we moved it onto the 68th. It's a more level surface. It'll help the students that have mobility challenges coming to and from the buses that they take to school. And by making those changes, we're able to actually add some load zones along 15th between 65th and 68th, and add some parking on the east side of the street too as well.
Great, thank you, Ryan. I'm gonna leave you on the spot here and ask if there will be any curb bulbs as a part of this project.
We have a couple curb bulbs at two of the streets at 68th especially. There's a very wide or large radius curve there. And so we did actually kind of bulb that out into the street and tighten that radius to kind of channel the traffic better and also improve safety for pedestrians. So we did do that at 68th Street. At 66th, I believe we looked at doing that too. There, I think it's just striping. We were kind of during the design, we were a little bit unsure how some of the curbs going to be for the new apartment building. And but I think on the north side of 66th there, we did help channelize that better.
Great, thank you. I'm going to keep Brian on for a bit until I call you, Daryl. So the next question is, why are the bike lanes unprotected at Northeast 65th Street and Northeast 75th?
Yeah, there was like several different options we explored during design of the project at 65th and 75th. One of the options did actually maintain the protection all the way through the intersections and maintain a buffer. In order to do that, though, it didn't allow us to provide any like left turn, dedicated left turn lanes at those two intersections. The traffic modeling that we did showed that would cause pretty severe backups at some of those intersections and several hundred feet of queues during like peak hours. And so we decided, see if there's a way we could add left turn pockets to like help improve, to reduce some of the traffic delays there. And we were able to do that, but only by dropping the protected buffer for the bike lanes at those two intersections. So it was a trade-off between safety and maintaining traffic flow.
Thanks, Brian. And you can take a stab at this one, or Daryl, feel free to jump in, but it's about Metro and bus stops. And the question is, are there any changes to Metro bus stops?
I guess I could talk a little bit about that. The biggest change to Metro bus stops, it's not really directly related to our project, but it has more to do with the light rail station opening up at Roosevelt next year. Metro's involved right now in a process to like kind of revise several bus routes that travel through the area and along 15th. And so several of the bus routes that currently use 15th are proposed to be either, I think some are either dropped and or they're actually, some are actually going to be moved to like Roosevelt and 12th Avenue to be closer to the light rail station. There is still some sections of 15th that still have bus service, but it would be from a brand new bus route. You could probably find more information about those on Metro's website, but as a bus stops itself, we were in design, we were looking at different options for the modifying some of the bus stop or the bus zones, but we kind of like dropped those after we found out a lot of the buses would be taken off 15th. So we didn't have any changes to the bus stops.
Thanks, Brian. This next one is for Daryl to kick us off, and Brian, feel free to jump in. The question is, I'm curious how the improvements at 15th Avenue and around Roosevelt High School are responding to the new apartment buildings going up around 65th and 15th. Some of them have driveways that may spill onto the bike lanes. How will the project make sure those interactions are safe?
Yeah, so we certainly have met with the developers that are building some of those apartments along 15th, and in the initial stages we talked to them about their designs and their concerns. At this time, we think our design is going to be working pretty well. We understand that bikes will be going past their apartment and they will have entrances there, but that will be on the east side where bicyclists will be going uphill and slower. I think we'd be more concerned if they were coming down the south side where people will have more momentum, more speed. And that's one of the reasons, like Brian mentioned, we moved the bus loading zone in conjunction with community requests off of 15th and onto 68th so that there isn't that interaction between traffic, the buses with people getting on and off, and then cyclists coming down at quite a fast speed. So yes, we understand that there are a lot more people coming to those new apartments. We have set aside a space for loading, which is not on 15th, it's just off of 15th on 66, so that those apartments can use that for business loading. We understand that people will be moving in and out into their apartments on a regular basis. So there will be a crosswalk right there where the load zone is, and we're hoping that that should work. But of course, we'll continue to monitor that situation. And I don't know, Brian, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, also too, anytime we have a bike lane actually cross like a commercial driveway for a big apartment building or just basically any kind of non-residential driveway, we actually do like put green paint in the bike lane, and it kind of lets the motorists turning across there kind of know that it's a conflict, but also it lets the bicyclists know that yes, this is a kind of a conflict point where vehicles will be traveling across the bike lane.
Thank you both. This next question, we can keep Brian on, is has the contractor been hired yet? When will construction begin? And do you have an idea of the start sequence?
Yeah, we do have a executed contract with a contractor currently. Right now, our best guess from talking to the contractor, they plan on starting in September of this year, in a couple months. Some of their first areas of work that they wanted to get done was doing some of the water line and sewer work in 15th between 70th and 75th. And so that work will like occur during the fall. Also during that time, the contractor will probably start on some things like curb ramps, some sidewalk repairs, and also some street, we call them base repairs. That's when if you see like the existing asphalt paving is really cracked up in bad shape, rather than just milling off 2 inches and putting back 2 inches, we do something called base repair, and that's where the contractor digs out the entire like 8 to 10 inch asphalt section all the way down to bare dirt and repairs the whole thing all the way up. That's called base repair, and so they'll be starting off doing that. At this time, we don't know if the contractor is going to start in the north side or the south side right now. One thing that we do want to work with them that now that we know that high school won't be in person starting in September, we're also going to try and get them to like do some of the crossing improvements at 66 and 68th this fall too. So, but so then like going to next spring, they'll still be continuing doing curb ramps and base repair and sidewalk work throughout the corridor. They'll also be doing at each of the major sewer and water line work between 70th and 75th, but then also there's some small spot drainage work all throughout the corridor. A lot of times we'll put in new drainage inlets and just some small pipe connections there, but we're not digging up the main sewer main out in the street like we are between 70th and 75th. And so right now, we either will like end up paving finish doing the paving work and the restriping either late in the fall in 2021, or depending on weather and how things progress, it might go into early 2022. So, did I miss anything on that question, or did?
Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
We shall see if somebody pings us. Let's see. The next question is for Daryl. And then Daryl has a short PSA as well about the Q&A function. But Daryl, first off, how can a neighborhood adjacent to 15th apply for residential parking zone status, RPZs?
So I would encourage people to email me at this point, daryl.bulmer@seattle.gov. My contact details are either on the flyer you received or on our website. And I can channel those questions because I've been collecting them and channeling them to our curbside management team. And they are going to be doing a study either later this year or early next year in association with, like Brian said, the Link Light Rail Station opening. And they realize there's going to be more pressure from that and from obviously the increase in new people moving into the area. We talked about some of those apartment blocks. So they're going to be doing a major study in this area, and they're just figuring out what streets they're going to be looking at, 68th and 69th or 70th. It's unsure which ones they're going to be covering, but as questions come in, I do channel those questions to that team, and they've assured me they'll meet with residents and make sure that they get a chance to be heard in terms of RPZs. The thing I wanted to mention, we are getting lots of questions, which is great. There's still an opportunity to ask questions. If it wasn't on at the beginning, at the top right of your screen, there's 2 speech bubbles with a question mark in it. You can click on that and type in your question and hit send, and we can address that. That's how we're getting these questions. If we don't get to them all by 7 o'clock, we will certainly collect all these questions and publish them live with their answers on our website either tomorrow or the next day, depending on how many we get and how difficult the questions are. So I just wanted to mention that at this time so that you have plenty of chance to ask questions. And this is not the end of it, of course. We're going to be available throughout this entire construction period so that you could reach out to us at any time, ask questions, call, send an email, and we'll be happy to respond. Thank you, Kayla.
Thank you. This next question, Daryl, you can try to kick us off, and Brian, feel free to chime in. But the question asks, how much notice will we get when you're closing the road in front of our homes for repaving?
So I can say as a community outreach person, we will give you as much notice as possible. We tend to have construction meetings. So myself, Kayla, Brian will attend these meetings. And what we get at those meetings are what is called as a 3-week look ahead. And we take that, condense it into a sort of newsletter, and we will send it out to people via email. So again, please sign up for our newsletters. We'll send those weekly on a predetermined day, just so that you get used to it. Most projects we send them Friday afternoons, just because it gives us that week to get the information together. So by my simple arithmetic, you should get 2 weeks notice. But you will see no park signs out there, and we're committed to trying to do door hangers. So we're going to do some print pieces that we'll try and get out ahead of time and let you know what's going on, or show you how you can reach out to us and find out more information. So Brian, if you have any additional thoughts on that?
No, I think the 3-week look ahead is a good source of information, and then yes, you'll send out like weekly updates based on the information we get from the contractor. So yeah, we try and keep the public as updated as best we can. It's you know, just working with our contractor and trying to get as most accurate information we can from our contractor. I mean, sometimes there's like last minute changes, but we try and keep those to a minimum. But yeah.
Thanks both. Brian, this question is for you, and it's asking why the new water main is not being extended all the way to Lake City Way.
There is a water main all along 15th between like Lake City Way all the way down to 55th currently. So it was just for some strange reason when they originally constructed that, the section between 70th and 75th was only 3 inches in diameter, which is not the standard size. So we're not doing any major water line work north of 75th Street because that's already a standard 8-inch water line in that section of 15th.
Great, thank you. This next question is for Daryl. And the question asks, could you speak more about the 2020 budget rebalancing? This move Seattle is not impacted. And this person wants confirmation if that's true.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you asking if this project is impacted by the rebalancing of the budget?
I can answer the question. Yeah, what the question is referring to, based on COVID, the city, or SDOT in particular, went through a process where we were like anticipating some budget impacts based on that, and so we looked at a lot of our different projects and determined whether those projects would proceed or not. This project, we received a federal grant of $1.5 million to help us pay for the work, and so it was determined that, yeah, that this project is fully funded and is continuing forward.
Great, thank you, Brian. I'll keep you on here and ask you a question about why there are no bike lanes north of Northeast 80th Street.
Yeah, during the design process of the project, there was talk about seeing if we could extend the bike lanes through the 80th Street intersection. We received like feedback from a lot of the businesses that providing bike lanes there and removing all the loading zones and the parking in front of the businesses would cause them basically to have no place to like load for their businesses. And so it was determined that a lot of the bikes, since we didn't really have bike lanes planned north of Lake City Way at this time, it was determined that we'd stop the bike lanes just south of 80th Street in order to try and maintain some loading zones for the businesses.
Thanks, Brian. And a follow-up bike question. Will this project or SDOT be putting in any bike parking on 15th, like the on-street bike corrals that have been put other places in the city?
At this time, no, we're not planning on putting any bike parking facilities on the street itself.
Can I just add to that? I know that as we were doing community outreach, one of the businesses up near 80th did ask about that. And they weren't the corral type, but they were just one of those bike parking, kind of like bars that you can set up on the sidewalk and you can attach your bike to that. And I know that we connected them with the relevant department, and we'll continue to do so throughout the project. So, I mean, there is a way to add bike parking. It's not necessarily through the project, and we can share that with anyone that's interested, so that we can connect you to the right people, and so that you can make those requests.
Thanks, Daryl. I'll give this next question to you, and it asks, what will be our hours of work for construction? This resident is interested in how early or late the construction will be and what we are doing to control dust, debris, noise, etc.
Sure. So our typical work hours tend to be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And Brian can correct me, and as we work towards starting the project, we will certainly update that. So again, please sign up for our email updates so we can clarify that with the contractor and let people know. If we need to work outside of those hours, such as Brian mentioned, when we're doing water main work or sewer work and we're trying to work at night, we'll seek noise variance and we'll let people know what's going on, so that we'll post those variances and we'll communicate that to neighbors, again, hopefully 2 weeks in advance. And in terms of controlling dust, Brian, that might be a question that perhaps you can help with.
Yeah, the contractor's required to like submit different methods to control dust and erosion on the project. I mean, sometimes you use street sweepers, you know, any kind of like open areas that, you know, could cause erosion, you know, sometimes they cover those. But yeah, it's primarily sweeping I've seen as the way they usually control kind of dust on the street. So your answer to that work hours, yeah, that's true. It's typically we generally work during the day. That's not to say there won't be some night work. Some of the work, like especially around the water line, they only like doing the water shutoffs to the home at nighttime to reduce impact to the residents. So you will hear some work at night during those periods. Some of the work at the major intersections like 15th and 65th and 75th and 80th, if you know we determine that doing that work during the day will cause like major traffic backups, sometimes we shift some of that work to like weekends, like Saturdays and Sundays. And like you said earlier, we generally like to make sure we maintain like one lane in each direction during the work. But that's not to say like sometimes maybe on nights or weekends, the contractor might need a bigger work area where they're only allowed, or not only allowed, but they only can maintain like maybe one lane that runs one direction, but we'd restrict that to pretty much only allow them to do that either at nights and or the weekends. So.
Thanks both. Brian, this next question is for you. And the question asks, will the speed on 15th from Lake City through to 50th be 25 miles an hour?
Yes, it'll be 25. is the speed limit.
Great, and I'll give you the next one as well. The question asks, will the new crosswalk at 62nd and 15th also include a rapid flashing beacon?
No, at this time we looked about potentially adding a rapid flashing beacon to that location as well. There wasn't enough funding in the budget to, fund a rapid flashing beacon at that location as well. So right now it'll just be a standard crosswalk, and they'll have like warning signs letting the motorists know that there's the crosswalk here, but it won't be a flashing beacon.
Okay, thank you. Daryl, this next question is for you, and it's a follow-up. The question is asking, why not create parking spots on 16th?
Why not create parking spots on 16th? I'm not sure what we're asking here. And what question that's a follow-up to, sorry.
The only thing I could think of what they're mentioning is on 16th Avenue at certain locations throughout the project area, there's only parking on one side of the street on 16th. And to be honest, I'm not sure really why that is, why they don't allow parking on both sides kind of thing. So as part of this project, we weren't going to change that at all.
Thank you both. This next question is for either. So Brian, you can start us off, and Daryl chime in if you feel you'd like to. When 68th is being redone to change directions, how will access be maintained for homeowners?
Well, to change the direction, it doesn't require any like concrete work or any kind of work where we'd have to like dig out any portions of the street. It's primarily done by like restriping and signing. And so when the contractor's out doing that work, there'll be like flaggers out there. And so the residents should still be able to get into and out of their houses, their driveways, when the contractor's doing the signing and the striping work to change the directions.
Great, thank you. I have another question for you, Brian. And the question asks, we are concerned about rush hour traffic and only having one through lane available north and southbound, and having cars cutting through the side streets, which we have already had issues with in the triangle area between 12th and 15th, north of 75th to Lake City Way. What mitigation has been planned for this?
So right now, at the intersections themselves, there will be still like one through lane in each direction, but then also to supplement that, we also have another lane available for like people turning left. And so the analysis and the traffic studies that we did show that by adding a left turn pocket or a special left turn phase, and that it wouldn't significantly increase delays for motorists at these intersections.
Great, thank you. I will kick this next one to you as well. The question asks, what's going to happen to operation of 15th when buses stop in the zones just north and south of 65th and they block the only lane in their direction? These stopped buses will be blocking other buses, general traffic, and bikes.
Yes, right now there's multiple different bus routes that use 15th Avenue. In the future, when Metro kind of like reconfigures the bus routes in Northeast Seattle, there actually will only be one bus route, and that'll be using the section of 15th between, I believe it goes between 65th and 75th. The rest of the sections of 15th won't have Metro buses on them, but there'll still be like bus stops between 65th and 75th for this one bus route. And so what we did is like we did the striping or the channelization where it allows the buses to pull over to the curb and there still should be enough room where the cars could slowly, carefully pass the buses while they're pulled over the curb line. I think it's approximately 16 feet from the center line stripe to the curb line, and so we feel that should be enough room for a car to like slowly go around a Metro bus.
Thank you, Brian. This next question is for Daryl. And the question asks, are speed bumps on 68th a part of the current plan?
They are not part of the plan right now, so that's a simple answer. But of course, with this sort of work around schools, we do continue to monitor the situation, and there certainly are other avenues to provide safe measures around the school, such as our Safe Routes to School program, and there are other grant programs for communities to apply to. So we can, as we work through construction and as those grant programs come back online, we will be able to share that with the community. So if we feel as a community that additional safety measures are required, then there are avenues to achieve that at a later date.
Okay, thank you. This next question is for Brian. And the question asks, will bus traffic increase or decrease? Has or will the weight tolerance for the road or bridge change?
Yeah, as part of Metro's bus restructure, the number of Metro buses on 15th will greatly decrease. And I believe the Metro won't have any buses that go across the Cowan Park Bridge on 15th anymore either.
Great, thank you. Another one for you, Brian. When the project is finished, will 15th Northeast carry the same volume of vehicle traffic as it does currently?
Yeah, yeah, we anticipate that 15th Avenue Northeast will still have approximately the same volume of traffic.
Thank you. Next question is also for you, Brian. Any plans for creating a safe way for people biking south on 15th to turn left onto the new Northeast 68th Street Greenway?
Yeah, the cars coming southbound at 15th will be able to they'll be able to pull over to the by the curb, and they'll be able to push the RRFB buttons so they can cross the street if they want to go eastbound on 68.
Thank you, Brian. This next question is for Daryl. And the question asks, who are you coordinating with at King County Metro?
In terms, I'm assuming you mean terms of bus stops and things like that. I mean, obviously through all these projects, we work with our partners really closely, and of course, as projects develop, their contacts change. So I'm not sure the exact name right now of who we're working with, but I can certainly get that information if someone needs that, and I can address that question offline at a later date.
Great, thank you, Daryl. This next question is for Brian. And the question is asking, will there be any raised center islands planned like on Northeast 45th Street?
No, we're not planning to build any raised center islands as part of this project at all.
Great, then this next question is also for you, Brian. And the question asks, what are the cycle lengths for the AM and PM peaks projected to be for the intersections of 15th and 65th, 15th and 75th, and 15th and 80th?
I'm not sure exactly what the signal cycle lengths. I'd have to like get back to the question and that. I had to look them up and look what the traffic report recommended.
Okay, thank you. Keep you on for this next one as well. Why is the Zone 10 restriction being removed for parking on the southbound side of 15th between Cohen Place and Ravenna Boulevard?
Well, on 15th, south of the Cowan Park Bridge, we're removing parking on one side of the street in order to have enough room to have a bike lane in each direction on 15th. They'll still be parking on the other side of the street, but one lane, we actually are removing the parking, or one side.
Okay, thank you. This next question is for Daryl. And the question asks, there are more homeless encampments in this part of Seattle every week, especially around Cohen Park and the Ravenna Boulevard medians. How will construction deal with this?
So we work very closely with the city's navigation team, and of course are very compassionate when we're working in and around people that are experiencing homelessness. So when we did the Cohen Park seismic retrofit recently, the bridge on 15th Avenue Northeast, there were encampments beneath and close by. So we gave a month's warning because we had to move those people that were experiencing homeless away from that area because of safety issues. So what happens is we post a warning or a sort of a signage saying, please, we're going to be having to relocate from this area just because we're working above you. And then a navigation team will go in on our behalf and work with those people in a hopefully compassionate way so that everything is dealt with. Yes, we've heard that from residents in the last couple of weeks. So, we're very mindful of that. We'll consider that as we work through this project. And we experienced this on many of our projects, and it's nothing new to SDOT. So we have a system set up, and we will continue to use that system through this project.
Thanks, Daryl. This next one is for you as well. And the question is asking about parent loading zones for the school. This resident is concerned that the school does not enforce the student loading area, and has experienced parents blocking the driveways and temporary loading zones.
So it sounds like they're talking about the bus loading zones. So we will be using the same signage that we have used or is presently used, and I'm not sure how that will be enforced. Maybe Brian, you would know more about how those signs are enforced during the school hours.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the current enforcement situation looks like. I know they have parking enforcement in the area that kind of goes around and enforces a lot of the RBZ parking zones and the current parking restrictions in the area. Probably some of it is the school, as education with the school, that they send out letters to the parents and the students, letting them know about being mindful of the parking regulations in the area and not blocking residents and businesses' driveways. Sometimes if people park in the school bus loading zones, I think it's up to the school then to call on police enforcement, and so they will get people ticketed in those areas. So probably the method of enforcement probably won't change based on this project at all.
Okay, thank you, Brian and Daryl. Brian, I'm going to kick this next one to you. The question asks, in not providing bike lane marking southbound through 65th, it appears that the plans invite cyclists to jump from the bike lane to the sidewalk and crosswalk through pedestrians to cross the street. How will the project work to prevent this?
Well, there's a curb between the bike lane and the sidewalk. Originally, when this project is, the bike lane was very narrow as we approached some of the intersections. We were able to kind of modify the channelization to improve the bike lane. So we, did maintain a 5-foot bike lane both directions on 15th through 65th. And so we think by maintaining that 5-foot wide bike lane, it will kind of encourage the bicyclists to stay on the street.
Thanks, Brian. Another biking question for you. Any plans for how bikers can safely access the PBL from the north or reach the businesses between 80th and Lake City Way?
Yeah, it's like, because you're going northbound, because as we said before, it's like we had to make some modifications to design where we had to drop the bike lane as we approach 80th, and so I guess it's it depends on the bicyclist. I imagine some bicyclists will walk their bikes along the sidewalk. If there's not a lot of people, some bicyclists will ride in the sidewalk, or they can they can be out in the street too and use the street as well. So, but I think the question is kind of alluding to, we did have to make some compromises in the design that kind of resulted in a less than, optimal bike lane as we would have liked.
Thanks, Brian. I have a follow-up clarification question about the Zone 10 parking restriction. The question is, why is the parking that isn't being removed being converted from zoned to unrestricted? There are no businesses nearby, so it would be great to preserve this parking for residents.
I guess I'm not sure of the question. I mean, if the residents in the area live there, they should be able to get zone parking stickers for their cars that'll allow them to park there. And those stickers, the way I understand the way the system works, I mean, anyone can park there. It's just the residents can leave their cars and not have to move their cars every 2 hours. But at least that's the way it works, kind of up by the Roosevelt High School in Zone 19. I'm not sure the specifics of Zone 10 and how that parking restriction works.
Thank you. Another question about parking, and Brian, you can kick us off, and Daryl, feel free to chime in. The question is asking, why didn't the project create new parking spots to compensate for the losses? This resident is referring to the length of 16th from 55th to Ravenna that Brian mentioned earlier.
I guess I'm not familiar with 16th between 55th and Ravenna. I'm not sure what they mean by creating new parking spots along 16th. I thought you could currently park on both sides of 16th in that area currently, kind of thing. What I was referring to earlier, I understand between at least 65th and at least as far as maybe 70th. I'm not sure if it's farther, that you can only park on one side of 16th. And so I'm not sure why that is, or why you can't park on both sides of 16th in that area. So, but that's something we could look into more.
Yeah, I think that we could certainly look into this. It's the project's going to be going on for 1.5 years, 2 years. So there's plenty of time for us to look at that. And that's some of the reasons for this outreach, is to continue to gather feedback and ideas. So this is one we've heard a couple of times. We will certainly make a note of it. We'll go out, take a look, talk to our curbside management team, and see if there's anything we can do. So, even though the plans for the actual project itself are done, it doesn't mean that some of the mitigating factors that we've talked about can't still happen, such as the speed bumps on 68 and 66, such as additional parking elsewhere, such as zoning around certain areas. There are things that, of course, we're willing to help to facilitate and connect people to the correct people within EST or other departments if it is a cause for another department. So all I can say is thank you for that feedback, because we can use that to see if we can help out in some way.
Thanks, Daryl. This next question, if you would like to take a stab, you can kick off, and Brian, please chime in. The question asks, in the section of 15th that doesn't have a protected bike lane, why not have the parking protect the bike lane on the one side of the road that does have parking instead of having parking by the curb? Is it because drivers will park in the bike lane instead of the designated parking area?
Yeah, I guess I could say that. Yeah, if, there was only enough room to provide a 5-foot wide bike lane. Typically, when we have the bike lane up against the curb, like I think this person's referring to, and I've seen it in other spots, is we usually only do that when we have like a 2-foot wide buffer between the cars and the bike lane. And that's why, since we only had the 5 feet, I think we just went for a design where it's the cars are up against the curb, and without that buffer and delineators, we probably feel that the cars would actually park in the bike lane.
Thank you. This next question asks, again about parking, is the 3-day limit still active?
This project isn't making any changes to city rules and regulations around the 72-hour parking rule. I believe currently during COVID, the city suspended those regulations, but yeah, this project doesn't make any changes to that.
Thank you. And this question is for you, Brian, as well. Have we chosen a contractor?
Yes, we have an executed contract with Titan Construction, so we already have.
Great. Another question about parking that you can kick us off with, Brian. Question asks, with the bus routes being moved, can we talk about how parking is being addressed on 68th? Even during COVID-19, on many days, all parking is taken up with no time limits.
So yeah, I think that the parking, you know, we were planning on doing a parking study. Actually, it's not really associated with this project, but it had more to do with a light rail station opening it up in Roosevelt next year. I think all the data gathering for that parking study was kind of like put on hold during COVID because, you know, we can't really get accurate numbers at this point, especially too when the school's not in, you know, going to be having in-person classes starting in September. So that parking study is at least the data gathering portion of it is somewhat on hold right now until we can get a more accurate depiction of what parking is actually going to be like. So, but in the future, yeah, once the parking study, they'll be looking at all kinds of different options, whether it's like, it'll probably be a mix of several different things. I'm not sure if it'll be like kind of increased residential parking zones, expanding those. It'll be a lot more time limited parking, I believe. And so, but, you know, they'll be doing some studies and trying to, you know, doing some outreach, try and get some input from residents and businesses in the area of like what kind of like how to address parking and, you know, and improve the situation.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Just to add to that, we have been working with the residents, or some residents, a group of them, along 68th, and I have been connecting them with our curbside management team who are conducting that study, and they have promised to meet with the residents along that street to talk about some of the various options. So, like I said before, we're certainly willing to connect people as an offshoot of this project. So that's actually actively happening.
Thank you. This next question is for you, Daryl. And the question is, can you please ask contractors to not have their engines idle when they're working?
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly talk about that and many other factors during our weekly meetings it's not unusual for feedback from the community to be presented to contractors. You know, sometimes some of their reversing signals and such are loud in the morning when they're staging. So there are various things that come up, and we can talk to them about that. So yes, we have made a note of that, and we will certainly talk to them about that. And maybe there are some other factors that come up often that Brian can talk about in residential areas.
Can you repeat that again?
The person was asking about noise and allowing contractors to idle their vehicles.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll like mention that during that frequently comes up as like issues during construction, and we'll make sure we mention that to the contractors not to like have vehicles idling right in front of residents.
Thank you both. This next question is asking about if there are any commitments on the project's part to maintain bike lanes, including sweeping, removing leaves, clearing growth, etc.
Not associated particularly directly with this project at all. I think what they're kind of alluding to that maintenance of the bike lanes has been kind of an ongoing issue all throughout the city. You know, they've been trying to do a better job. I understand they have like a small sweeper that actually can travel within the bike lanes now, but I kind of like encourage people to constantly use like find it, fix it when they find like a bike lanes filling up with debris, and yeah, and sending in their comments and concerns about maintenance of the bike lanes. I guess one small thing we are doing with this project is I noticed there was like some drainage problem with some of the bike lanes along the south end of the Ravenna Bridge, Cowan Park Bridge. It goes over the Ravenna Creek, and we are adding some supplemental drainages to help improve some of the picking up some of the water surface flow to prevent ponding in the bike lanes. So we are doing that.
Great, thanks, Brian. This next question is also for you. Are there any speed enforcement cameras planned for this project?
Not associated directly with this project, no, there's not.
Okay, this next question is also for you. It has multiple parts, so bear with me. The question asks, what does the modeling show for the operations of 15th and 80th, and what backups will be during the AM and PM peaks? Does the modeling show traffic backing from 15th and 80th to and through the intersections of 15th and Lake City Way and 15th and 80th? What will be the effect of this work on operations of routes 77 and routes 520?
Yeah, as we said, it was like we did some traffic modeling during the design of the project, trying to analyze how we could like channelize the intersections without impacting traffic flow that much. And so I believe our consultants came up with a design that actually, you know, does a pretty good job of maintaining traffic flow and preventing, you know, severe backups. That's not to say it's like during some peak times, especially around when Roosevelt High School is like all the students are arriving and departing, there won't be like some severe, you know, pretty long backups. I've noticed that occurs today ever since I've kind of lived in the neighborhood. But you know, we looked at multiple different options. Some of the options that we did look at actually did cause pretty long backups that would occur like throughout most of the peak rush hour. But we tried to like find an option that did the best job of like balancing the needs of providing a relatively safe bike lane and provides like a traffic flow so that doesn't cause like too severe backups.
Thank you, Brian. This is our last question. And the question asks, and you can also take a stab at this, Brian. Do we know the number of contracts that will be in the area during the time of this project? What parking or transit options are being given to them?
I believe when they say contracts, I mean the contractor's personnel. I'm not sure exactly how many personnel will be on site at any one time. They're constantly kind of moving around. I mean, one time they might be working like towards the south end, then they'll be working towards the north end, and so it'll kind of come and go. So I'm not sure, just based on the jobs I've seen, sometimes, you know, anywhere between, sometimes as few as 5, sometimes there's more like 20 people, contractors people in the area. And so, yeah, that's how they will go. But I haven't seen the contractors people like given like orca cards or anything like that to take the bus to the job sites at all. So they'll be like parking in the area while they're working.
Great, thank you, Brian. And that was our last question.
So I just want to wrap it up by saying, like I said earlier, this isn't the end of the conversation, more of the beginning. I want to thank everyone for joining us, especially on a warm, lovely summer's evening here in Seattle, and for posing some difficult questions. We have more questions that we have thought of that we might want to share. So we're going to add those to everything we've collected tonight, answer these questions that you've submitted as fully as possible, and we'll add those to the website. We've had an amazing amount of questions, so it may take us an extra day, but they will be on there so that you can share. This entire video will be available tomorrow morning, hopefully, if I can get it to work. So that will be on the website. So if you want to share that with people in the area, colleagues, fellow residents that may have missed out tonight, then please do so. Again, I just want to thank Brian for answering some really amazingly good questions, and for Kayla for handling some tough administration in the back end. And of course, thank you to all of you who've made this a rich and what I consider a good conversation. We will be here, myself and Kayla, throughout the entire project as communications people, and Brian as project manager. So you've really met the team tonight who will be here hopefully throughout the entire project to respond to any questions that you have, any concerns, anything that comes up, and to really help try and make this project go as smoothly as possible. So once again, I want to thank everyone for attending, and we're going to end the presentation. So thank you very much.